warmly welcoming Gladys Emmanuel. Gladys Emmanuel is a distinguished Nigerian human rights lawyer and a gender equality advocate, holding degrees from in law from University of Jos, Plateau State, and Nigerian Law School. She has additionally earned a postgraduate degree in human rights law from Cardiff University, Wales, United Kingdom. With a career spanning advocacy, policy analysis, and partnership building, Gladys has demonstrated expertise in gender-based violence, women and girls' rights, child protection, and other broader human rights issues. She excels in navigating complex environments and fostering impactful partnerships to drive positive change. Currently serving at the Tabitha Empowerment Center, Gladys leads advocacy efforts and directs program development to combat violence against women and girls. Her commitment to human rights, women's rights, gender issues, and justice has afforded her opportunities to contribute her voice and expertise on both international and local platforms. She was featured as the Women of the Sun in Sun newspaper. In recognition of her outstanding contribution, Gladys received the 30th Awards from Cardiff University, Wales, United Kingdom in 2022. This accolade honored her as a community activist for her tireless efforts in combating gender-based violence. Furthermore, Gladys is a researcher having authored numerous academic papers. Her scholarly contributions underscore her commitment to advancing knowledge and informing policy in critical areas of human rights and social justice. Gladys Emmanuel continues to be a driving force in the fight for equality and justice, leveraging her expertise to create a more equitable and just society for all. Please join me once again in welcoming Gladys Emmanuel. Her topic for today is Examining Privacy and Safety, a Gender Perspective. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much for that introduction. Good morning, everyone, from the beautiful city of Abuja, the nation's capital in Nigeria. I'm indeed delighted to be a part of the third edition of the International Conference on Law and Technology. First, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the School of Law of the Northcap University for putting together this transformational and informative and timely initiative. I mean, the topic has already been reeled out for us. And so I'll just go ahead and share my screen.
Ms. Gladys, actually we're unable to view you. So is it possible that you can switch on your camera?
Okay. Great. Can you hear me and can you see me now?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. So, are we able to see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay. Okay. So I will be sharing with us today on examining privacy and safety, a gendered perspective. And from our discuss today, we will be considering the concept of privacy by looking at definitions, analysis, preferred by international bodies, preferred by researchers, and international, regional, and domestic legal instruments. Also, we'll be comparing the data protection laws from various jurisdictions such as India, the United States of America, and Nigeria. Following this, it would usher us into a few session outcomes. The first is gaining insights into the link between the cyberspace and cyber violence against women and girls. Also, would be looking at policies which seek to protect internet users. Following that, we would be examining strategies adopted both online and offline to support victims or survivors of cyber violence against women and girls. Then we'll be turning our attention to factors that challenge the safety of women and girls online. We would also be looking at gaps in data protection laws from these three jurisdictions that I've mentioned earlier, the United States of America, Nigeria, and India. And finally, we will be preferring recommendations to these gaps. To begin, of course, it's very evident that there has been a rapid evolution of technology and the emergence of new technologies. This, of course, has transformed our daily living experience, providing users with unprecedented opportunities. I mean, right now, people all around the globe undertake trade online. We are undertaking a learning session online. People share information online, they raise awareness, and all of this contributes towards fostering global unity. Now, while these developments are very beneficial, it has also brought challenges to us. These challenges stem from misuse and the lack of adequate regulation on the use of internet and social media platforms. This has led to a widespread of human rights violation, particularly in the realm of gender-based violence. Now, technology has become a very fertile ground for various forms of abuse. Now, this abuse are perpetuated by either ex-partners, anonymous individuals, or intimate partners. And from this, it has increased the spate of online violence and abuse, with sexual abuse and cyberbullying being among the most prevalent. Now, following the continuous spate of online violence and the rise in figures, unfortunately, society has normalized this evil, thereby posing significant threats to the lives of women, to the lives of girls, and even men and boys, as we navigate our way through using the internet and using social media platforms. Now, recent studies and surveys conducted by both the United Nations and other international organizations have demonstrated that although men and boys are affected by this form of violence, but women and girls are disproportionately affected, and thereby experiencing harmful behaviors ranging from sharing of images and videos online to stalking, glitch. I hope I'm audible enough and my screen can be seen.
Gladys, if there's a problem at your end with the network, you can switch off the video. Am I audible to you? Camera off, network issue.
I thank you very much.
मैं message करती हूँ.
Gladys, can you hear me?
All right. So just like every other form of violence, okay, just like every other form of violence, whether it's a picture, it's a video, it's a private information, and all. It's important to note that addressing complex challenges posed by online violence tampers with our right to privacy and safety while using internet or technological devices. Now, for us to be able to address these issues, we require a collective effort. We require a collective effort on the side of the government.
Participants, please mute yourself.
Please don't go fast.
Gladys, am I audible?
Yes, I am. You are, sorry. I can hear you loud and clear. Can you also hear me?
Yes, Gladys, I would request you, I think you should switch off your camera. That will improve the network.
Perfect. All right.
Did we start the recording?
I think so. It is going on.
I think this should be better.
Find out.
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Please continue.
All right. So it's important to note that in addressing issues of online violence or cyber violence against women and girls, we require a collective effort, both on the part of the government, on the part of civil society organizations, technology, companies, schools, and every individual. It's imperative for us to develop a comprehensive and workable strategy. Now, strategies that encompass prevention, strategies that recognize the importance of support mechanisms tailored to meet the unique needs of groups affected by these forms of abuse. Now, moving forward, we would look in depthly at privacy. What exactly is privacy? What does it mean? According to Black's Law Dictionary, privacy is the right that determines non-intervention in secret surveillance and protecting an individual's information. So we see that there is non-intrusion or non-intervention, and then we see that there is information that is peculiar to another person, and then we see the word protection coming in. Going over to international legal instruments, looking at Articles 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights, Resolution 428, 1970, it says the right to privacy is the right to live one's own life with minimum interference. Now, flowing from this, we can see that, of course, for there not to be interventions or intrusions, it means that the right to privacy is actually the right that holds every other right that we exercise. So whether it's a right to life, a right to personal liberty, a right to association, a right to freedom of expression, right to privacy is the right that anchors all of these rights. Now, Paul Singhart in 1976 states that indeed there is a link between right to privacy and other concepts such as autonomy, concepts such as power and information flow. Now, turning our gaze to the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the Rights of privacy in 2019 equally stressed the importance of privacy by emphasizing that the absence of privacy equates the vulnerability of individuals. Checking out case laws in Kahak Singh versus Sita Pradesh in 1963, the court clearly analyzes the right to privacy occurring together with right to life and right to personal liberty. So it means that they cannot occur in silos, they occur together. The Supreme Court, in its judgment in this same case, expressed that an individual cannot be said to live a life to full if he is constantly being watched. And I'm sure the same applies for every other person. I mean, if you're being watched day to day, both online, both offline, it kind of it rattles you and makes you unstable, and you're not able to fully live your life. Now, looking at both international, regional, and domestic legal instruments, of course, our first bit whenever we talk about issues of human rights and origin is our Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Now, Articles 12 of the UDHR, as it's fondly called, emphasizes the principle that individuals are entitled to certain rights regarding their privacy, family life, home, and communication. It recognizes that an unwarranted intrusion or intervention with rights to privacy has an adverse effect on every aspect of an individual's life. It equally acknowledges that everyone has a right to legal protection against any form of interference or attack on their privacy and reputation. Now, a point to note is that issues of privacy, when the right to privacy has been violated, an individual's reputation is at stake, an individual's honor is at stake, depending on the severity of this particular issue. Then we'll look at the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, otherwise known as ICCPR, Article 17 condemns individuals' privacy and states that all individuals are entitled to legal protection from interference and attack. So this particular legislation also confers a burden on state parties, meaning states that have ratified these international legal instruments. It confers on them a responsibility to ensure that there is legal protection for all citizens or individuals from any form of interference or attack. Also, the Convention for the Rights of a Child, known as UNCRC, Article 16, paragraphs 1 to 2, also focuses on the person of a child. Children are also individuals that are subject to cyberbullying and all forms of cyber violence, and we'll see that as we stride along. It focuses on the person of a child and condemns all forms of interference with his or her privacy and unlawful attack of honor and reputation. The next, of course, looks at persons who are migrant workers or members of their family. So irrespective of whether you've come from a different country and you now reside in another country with your family, the law provides backing and protection for you from all forms of intrusion on your privacy. Now, this law, Articles 14, stresses extensively that migrant workers and their families ought to be protected from all forms of interference with their privacy, and also confers on state parties to provide legal protection for them. The European Convention on Human Rights and Fundamental Freedom, Articles 8, also grants members of EU states such as Germany, such as France, the right for respect to their privacy. The same also applies for the Convention for the Protection of Individuals with regards to automatic processing of personal data. Articles 1 provides respect for human rights, with a particular focus on the right to privacy. Now, bringing it home to India, the Constitution of India, Articles 21, guarantees the right to life, personal liberty for citizens and non-citizens residing in India. Articles 19 of this also goes further to state that this right is not absolute, but it is essential for free development of an individual's identity. Then we move on to the number one legal instrument that provides protection for women, which is the Convention for the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, known as CEDAW. Articles 2 and Articles 5 of CEDAW, especially Articles 5, speaks to the obligation on states to adopt or develop appropriate measures to modify social and cultural patterns with a view to eliminating all forms of prejudices, practice hinged on the notion of inferiority and superiority. Now, at the bottom of issues of cyber violence or cyber else is the notion of inferiority and superiority. The same lies with issues of gender-based violence. Now, going over the Istanbul Convention, otherwise known as the Council of Europe Convention on Preventing and Combating Violence Against Women and Domestic Violence. Articles 3A, Articles 5, Paragraph 2, and Chapter 4 of this particular convention provides first a broad definition of violence against women and girls. Then it goes on to capture any form of deprivation of liberty and interference in private and public life. And of course, we know that issues of cyber violence usually progresses most of the times from private chats, and then it proceeds to letting out very vital information to the public domain. Recommendation number 1 of the Istanbul Convention equally states that this convention is hinged on the digital dimension of violence against women. So this is one legal instrument that spotlights particularly and recognizes that there is a form of violence against women and girls that can occur from the digital space. Also, we have other pieces of legislation like the Arab Charter on Human Rights, Articles 21, the American Convention of Human Rights, Articles 11. All of them speak to the fact that there is a need to tackle issues of intrusion on privacy, and also shoulders a responsibility on state parties to ensure that legal protection is provided for individuals who find themselves in a situation of violation of these rights. Moving on, we would be embarking on a bit of comparative analysis, drawing from the United States of America, Nigeria, and India. Now, in the United States of America, unfortunately, there is no single piece of legislation for data protection. Rather, what is obtainable are various legislations that speak to health data, financial information, or data collected from children. To take, for instance, there is the Health Insurance Portability and Accounting Act, otherwise known as HIPAA in the US. There is also the Fair Credit Reporting Act, FCRA. There is also the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, COPPA. And then there is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA. With this approach, there are gaps in the protection of privacy because not many forms of data are protected. Now, the challenge with this approach that is adopted by the United States is that it leaves enormous gaps in data collection, thereby not making these forms of data covered by existing laws. Also, the protection in existing laws are narrow and very limited and do not provide adequate protection for individuals. Also, this form of approach, otherwise known as sectorial approach, leads to confusion by members of the public as to what type of personal data is protected and what type of data is not covered by the law. So take, for instance, under the health and insurance law, as mentioned earlier, health data collected outside of the insurance relationship between the doctor and the patient is not covered by this law. So it therefore leaves some form of gap between the relationship the doctor and the patient have. Then we turn our gaze to Nigeria. On the 14th of June 2023, the long-awaited Data Protection Bill was passed by the 9th National Assembly in Nigeria. Now, some of the benefits expected from this legislation includes: 1, promoting data processing practices, I beg your pardon, that privacy of data. For the regulation of personal data. 3, establishing an impartial and independent commission to regulate and superintend over data protection and privacy issues. Now, this law positions one of the progressive countries championing data protection globally, although there are pitfalls with regards to this particular bill or this particular law. The number one challenge or gap is the use of ambiguous phrases. So if we go through this particular piece of legislation, you see ambiguous phrases, you see open-ended phrases, thereby creating confusion as to what these phrases mean or what they connote. So there's supposed to be an independent status of the commission. So this commission or regulatory body that the law states should be put together or established to monitor privacy issues. This particular commission is to be independent, so to speak, but its performance is at the prerogative of the president. So it therefore means that the prerogative to appoint, to remove members lies with the president. And of course, in situations like this, we know that sometimes thereby impacting on the overall objective or duties of this particular commission. Now, in India, on the 11th of August 2023, the Indian Parliament enacted the first Digital Data Protection Act 2023, otherwise known as DPDPA. This law is set to effect. Among other things, the law also on erasing personal data, that is, data collected in digital form and non-digital form. So whether the initial state of the data was in digital form or whether the initial state was collected manually and then transcribed to a digital form, it regulates this process. Also, data may lawfully be processed only with the consent of data principals for specific purposes. So, 1, to comply with court orders to respond to medical emergencies, disasters, or pandemics. And of course, it also talks about cross-border data outside of India and does not require the implementation of a transfer mechanism. And finally, the government of India reserves the absolute right to classify certain data as significant data based on sensitivity and the volume of data that is processed. one of the challenges with this particular legislation is the law does not clearly differentiate between personal data and sensitive data. So we give an instance, things such as your name, your address, your telephone number, our data. Things such as your religion, such as your immigration status are sensitive data. But this law does not clearly differentiate between these forms of data, thereby confusion as to classification. Also, the DPDPA does not provide for specific instances in which data principals may object to or restrict the processing of personal data. To that has been said, I would be giving us a few examples or instances where there had been violation of privacy. The first example would be stemming from Nigeria. So in the year 20, major, the National Relation Board, who was arrested for engaging in an online chat board that regulates all activities that have to do with taking examinations that will ensure that students or individuals are able to gain admission into universities or various tertiary institutions. Now, in the course of registration, you would be asked to submit a telephone number or a telephone number and an email address that you could be reached on. Now, for the case of Sclafio, she didn't have a phone of her own, so her mother used her own telephone number to register now, the date he took that number and he began to chat with the he suggested in those messages that the conversation be kept between himself and the student. Now, the mother of the students being very upset with all of this that has transpired, because first, the privacy of her daughter has been violated. This is inappropriate, going by the laws and going by moral standards. The mother accused the exam board of negligence and lack of data security. This prompted investigation and subsequent arrest of the CPT manager. Now, the United Kingdom is also not left out. Of privacy. In March, in Latin news, one clinic, a staff at the clinic of Wales medical records, where she underwent treatments in January for an abdomen. Now, in the at its fair share with 3 billion users' accounts exposed following the action of a team of Russian hackers who targeted Yahoo's database using stolen backups and access cookies, thus stealing records ranging from names, emails, addresses, telephone numbers, birthdays, passwords, and security questions. Now, the United Nations General Assembly on the 16th of October made a significant remark. Just like with every right that we have, the question that usually crops up is a right absolute? Are there limitations? Are there forms or things that could subvert the exercise of a particular right? And this is what the UN General Assembly has to say. It is important to note that the right to privacy is not absolute, but it is essential for the free development of an individual's personality and identity. The Human Rights Council, in its resolution 34/7, and the General Assembly have equally called upon states to address violations of the rights to privacy. So first, they understand that these rights are not absolute, as there are certain things that could make this right be subverted or limited in exercise. But again, they also remind state parties to address issues of violations of the right to privacy. Now, what are the exceptions to this right, if at all? Are there exceptions to the exercise of a right to privacy? So Articles 19 of the Constitution of India aligns with the pronouncement of the United Nations General Assembly, but providing that these rights can be limited in exercise. Now, we also have a case reported in 1998 of Mr. X versus Hospital Z, where the court held that the right to privacy is not absolute and that it can be subverted to serve the large public interests and public health. So if there are situations where public interests or public health might be jeopardized as a result of the exercise of that right, the court can give an order to subvert the exercise of that right. Now, in the case of R. Rajagopal versus State of Tamil Nadu in 1995, it was decided by the Apex Court that unauthorized publication of a person's life without consent is violative of the person's rights to privacy, and hence the right to freedom of speech and expression. Freedom of speech and expression must be exercised with the duty of not intervening in the privacy of a person. Now, in the world today, we have so many, I like to call them keyboard happy individuals. So individuals who will make comments on Instagram, who will make comments on Facebook, who will take private information and put it out in public domain, thereby jeopardizing the reputation or honor of a person and also the safety of that particular individual. So distilling from what the Apex Court has said, it means that yes, we are free to exercise our freedom of speech and expression, but this must be exercised with some level of consideration and respect for the other person. If we exercise this freedom by interfering or intervening in the privacy of another person, then it moves from the zone of exercising this freedom to a violation of a person's right to privacy. All right, moving on from this, we would be delving into the concept that forms the core of our discussion today, which is cyber violence, because that is where issues of privacy, or that is where issues of cyberspace conversation stems from. So we're talking about safety of women and girls online. We're talking about privacy of women and girls online. We will be looking at the concept of cyberspace versus cyber violence, or cyber violence against women and girls. So both terms are used interchangeably. What then is cyberspace? It refers to the virtual environment created by interconnected computer systems and networks. It's essentially the digital realm where communication takes place, where transactions takes place. For instance, we are having a session, which is a form of communication, and we are leveraging the cyberspace. I'm all the way in Nigeria, and this is happening in India. So one beauty of the cyberspace is it has helped to fill in the link or the gap that would have been created in its absence. It's also a place where interactions take place over the internet. Now, in cyber violence, individuals can communicate, they can share information, they can conduct business. We have so many individuals right now who do not have a physical office. So many individuals who do not have a physical place of work, but they work daily leveraging the cyberspace. They are able to communicate with people regardless of distance. They're able to provide services regardless of where they're located. They're also able to engage in various activities through the use of computers. So computers are some of the ways we leverage the cyberspace, mobile devices such as your iPads and other digital technologies. Now, what then is cyber violence? Cyber violence, on the other hand, refers to harmful and abusive behavior that is perpetrated using digital technologies. I'll take my country as an example. People have gotten so used to airing their views without restrictions that they think it's okay for you to voice out certain things. But with the turn of events, with the way law enforcement is taking up these cases, they're beginning to realize that in as much as I have freedom of expression, I shouldn't do so at the detriment of another person. So things such as internet, social media, mobile devices, and other online platforms are the platforms or modes for which cyber violence can be perpetrated. Now, this type of violence comes in diverse forms, but I'll be listing a few of them. So we have cyberbullying, we have online harassment, we have revenge pornography, we have cyber stalking, we have doxing, we have hate speech, we have impersonation, and then we have hacking. So, for instance, doxing refers to giving out vital information of a particular individual. So I wake up, for instance, one morning, and on the internet is my home address for members of the public to see. That is doxing. That is a violation of my privacy right, because that form of information should not be available on public domain. Now, we also have things like revenge pornography. I'm working in the field of gender-based violence. I have witnessed this a few times. Someone had an intimate relationship with another person, and then things do not go as expected. One party is disgruntled after the separation, and then they decide to put out very vital information about the other person on the internet. About 70% of the victims of revenge pornography will tell you, I had no idea when my picture or my video was taken. And most of the times they're saying the truth. In fact, majority of the time they're saying the truth. So this is a gross breach of their right to privacy. Then we have things like cyberbullying. I mean, this is very common. If you work in the space that deals with issues of women and girls, every once in a while, when you open your inbox, either on Facebook or Instagram, you see lots of that. Sometimes this comes in form of threats. This comes in form of all forms of inappropriate words. Then you have cyber stalking. This person is not familiar with you, you're not familiar with them, but they follow you on every social media platform. They follow you just to elicit information from you, information that they would use for their own benefit or to their advantage. Then impersonation, pretending to be something you're not or someone you're not. Sometimes this presents itself in something we call catfish or catfishing. I don't know how many of us are very conversant with that particular phrase. Then we have hacking. What does hacking mean? It means getting into someone's private space on the internet or on social media to elicit information. So I might be conversing with someone on my phone and someone else is tapping into that conversation. Or I might be sending an email and someone else is getting a copy of that email. Not because I consented to that, but because they've been able to find their way into my computer, or they've been able to get access to my password, or they've been able to clone my social media platform. Now, it's very important to know that cyber violence support networks of women and girls. So it's a very strong tool that is used. So for instance, we have support networks created by women and girls to foster solidarity and tackle cyber. Either of the forms of cyber violence can be used to undermine the essence of this group or this solidarity. So take, for instance, in Serbia, there was a very peculiar case. Now, following the revelation of sexual violence in an educational institution in Serbia, women formed a Facebook. The Facebook page is translated to mean "I did not ask for it." Now, through this Facebook page, women could report sexual violence in a safe space first, and then share their experiences anonymously. Amongst other things, this group received backlash ranging from criticism to mockery to sexist jokes to unsolicited sexual content to attempt to hack into the platforms, fake emails with inappropriate or false contents. All of this was targeted at undermining the objective of this group, making the group feel unsafe for members, and also trying to get private information about members of this group. Now, it is important to note that online violence against women and girls is no respecter of status or educational qualification. So we've had women who are high up there in their career who are also subjected to cyber violence. We've also had little girls who are also subjected to cyber violence. I will be giving us some real cases of cyber violence against women and girls. Now, these cases were documented from 2008 to 2024, and they all have some things in common. So these cases were drawn from Canada, the United States of America, Democratic Republic of Congo, Colombia, United Kingdom, Denmark, Nigeria, India, and Bosnia and Herzegovina. Now, most of the perpetrators recognized in the cases drawn are either ex-husband, the crimes, I beg your pardon, ranging from cycling to sexist trolling, Actually, we have about 5.35 billion persons who use social media, giving rise or translating to about 66.2%. Then, I beg your pardon, that's for the internet. Then social media users is estimated at 5.04 billion, translating to 62.3. In India, it records about 692 million for the internet and about 1.408 billion users respectively. We'll go over to about 85% of women state that the internet provides them with more freedom, while about 73% of women experience online abuse. 61% of online harassers are most likely to be men, leading to 9 million women experiencing severe forms of cyber violence against women and girls since they turned the age 15. Women aged 18 to 24 are at heightened risk of cyber violence against women and girls. Feminine usernames receive more online threats than masculine usernames, and 1 in 5 women feel that the internet is inappropriate for them. This down to social media users. So these are the figures for Facebook, for WhatsApp, for YouTube, for Instagram, and then it's further broken down into demographics. So ages 18 to 29 have something in common. A large amount of them make use of Snapchat, TikTok, and Instagram, while age 30 to 39, we do not see TikTok reflecting here. Rather, what we see is LinkedIn, Twitter, and Snapchat. From ages 40 to 49, we see about 25% of persons using LinkedIn, about 22% of them leverage Facebook, and 21% use Twitter. Now, from ages 50 to 59, we see Snapchat, we see Twitter, we see Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram non-existent, as they leverage just Facebook and LinkedIn. Now, what are the characteristics of cyber violence? We have identified what cyber violence is. We've talked about some real life cases. So what in itself are some of the characteristics? The first one is anonymity or unknown. So the abuser remains unknown to the victim, which is one of the challenges with this particular form of violence, because then tracking the perpetrator seems like an almost impossible task. Then we have that abuse can be done undertaken at action at a distance. So what does that mean? It means you have a format. It doesn't mean somebody to perpetrate this. They could be in one country and perpetrate it to persons in another country. Then we have abusive actions require less effort as the abuser leverages technologies. Now, we are in a day when I could schedule an email or schedule a Facebook post and go to sleep. And at that time, the post goes on live. So abusers leverage this advancement in technologies to perpetrate this act. Then there is the variety and accessibility of many technologies, which make them readily accessible to perpetrators. So people now have computers, they have mobile phones, they have iPads, so there are lots of options for them to leverage to be able to continue this act. Then text, images, videos multiply and exist indefinitely. The thing with online violence is that once it's released, most of the times we hear cases of maybe a very famous person had their private video released, and in less than 24 hours, people from various parts of the world have access to those images or those videos. So it continues to multiply and exist indefinitely. So even if you crack down the perpetrator, there are still many other people in possession of that particular information. Other forms of characteristics includes global reach. So a perpetrator or this form of violence can be committed by one person to target victims in different parts of the world. Then there's also the use of malwares. What does malware mean? Malwares are softwares used to infect computers, steal information, gain unauthorized access to networks. So they come in forms of phishing. Phishing can mean sending out links, sending out documents, and then telling you, oh, click on this. And once you do that, the rest is history. Your information, personal data have been taken over. Then, of course, there is the aim of theft of personal information. No perpetrator undertakes cyber violence without the goal of taking or eliciting personal information from victims. And then there's the potential for financial gain. So perpetrators look out to make money through fraud or theft or blackmail. We'll move on to the next agenda, which is factors that challenge the safety of women and girls online. We've talked about the problem, we've talked about perpetrators. Now, what are some of the factors that challenge the safety of women and girls online? Most women and girls, especially those in rural communities, do not have access to digital devices. So you see most of them sharing devices with maybe family members, with friends. And when they're done using that device, they are on, they do not know how to clear their history, chat history, or get rid of personal information imputed. So fluidity of digital devices ownerships makes it difficult to ensure privacy. I'm done with a device, I hand it over to someone. That person can quickly go on to maybe Facebook, get my password, or manipulate the system and get what the necessary information they need. Also, the lack of sophistication of use of mobile phones, computers, prevent women and girls from understanding and managing their online presence. Now, most women and girls are not tech savvy. They do not have adequate knowledge on what to do, how to ensure that their presence online is safe. So this also makes them susceptible to issues of cyber violence. Then we have fear of being tracked, re-victimization, and dismissive attitudes. This leads to low reporting of cases and lack of trust in authorities. So a perpetrator can threaten the abuser, and perhaps a person has gone through this before and they do not want to revisit this ordeal. So they'll just keep quiet instead of going out to seek for help. Then there's dismissive attitudes from maybe the part of the authorities or part of caregivers. This thereby leads to low reporting of cases and lack of trust. Now, also things like awareness of e.g. using the same passwords for all handles is all equally responsible. Some of these perpetrators or hackers have become very smart. So they have a list. If you go online and you check for the list of most used passwords, you will see most of them. All they need to do is manipulate the system or familiarize themselves with the victim by chatting with them and pretending to be very friendly, gaining the trust of the victim, and then they use this to their advantage. Also, the use of easy passwords makes this access to devices very effortless. There's also something called social engineering. So hackers get very familiar with the victim. For instance, you're chatting with someone who you don't know and it's gone on for over a month, over 2 months. They have that patience. Hackers have, or perpetrators have that patience. So they elicit information such as your pet's name, your street name, the name of your high school teacher, the name of your parents, and then they try to reward this just to get access into social media platform. Then also saving vital information on social media is one of the challenges. So we have some people who still have their email address on social media. We have some people who still have their telephone number on social media. This makes it very easy for hackers to utilize. Now, it's very important for us to know that cyber violence against women and girls continents, as countries such as Kenya, South Africa are fast becoming a hub for these ills, with mobile phones being the easiest and fastest devices in use. We'll be rounding up shortly, but before we do that, it's good for us to go through some of the initiatives to tackle violence against women and girls, both online and offline. So the first one we have is Moraba. It's a mobile game application in South Africa. It's used to educate young people on gender-based violence. Then we have He for She campaign. It's a United Nations initiative. It's for solidarity movement to seek engagement of men and boys to engage with women in achieving gender equality. So when we're able to make men and boys understand the severity of these issues and how it causes a damaging effect to the victims, whether the victims are women or girls or boys or men, we would be able to have a concerted effort to tackle this. Then we have Partners for Prevention, otherwise known as P4P. It's supported by the UNDP. It's a multi-country research study on men for capacity building, including campaigns that target men for change. Then we have Let's Talk Men 2.0. And this was launched in India, Pakistan, Nepal, and Sri Lanka. And it's a film series designed to serve as tools for exploring gender norms, especially for young people. Then we have Center for Cyber Victims Counseling in India. This center designs educative cyber awareness programs for communities, law enforcement, and schools. Then we have Take Back the Tech, Map It, End It. This one seeks to take control of technology by encouraging women and girls to tell their stories, especially stories of abuse, just to deter others from making similar mistakes. Then we have Harass Map. Harass Map is operational in Egypt. It leverages interactive mapping to reduce the social acceptability of sexual harassment. Then we have safety field. So with safety pin, users can pin places they feel unsafe or they might harass, speaking about records. So the first is to improve access to affordable mobile technology, phone features, data plans, and internet connectivity. Then there is a need to address issues of awareness of tools and services online and digital literacy and training for women and girls. Then there's a need for us to adopt laws to eliminate internet-based crimes and address other institutional needs, such as public review mechanisms, training of the police and key players in the justice system. There's also a need to have a single document and implement those documents that seek to protect data of individuals. So it's not good enough to have diverse documents, legal documents. We need to have one that is targeted at data protection. Then we also need to ensure that laws are victim-centered, they're focused also on safeguarding, and they're also focused on enforcement. The laws should also take into recognition, prevention, sensitization, and awareness creation, as these are powerful tools for us to combat issues of cyber violence against women and girls. Then we ensure compliance or consultation on civil rights. And also there's a need for the government to work together with individuals, civil society organizations, and every relevant stakeholder to ensure that issues of cyber violence against women and girls are dealt with. Thank you very much for listening.
Fantastic and a structured presentation. Certainly, we have gained a new perspective on this very important topic of concern. If anyone in the participants would like to ask any question.
Are muted, no?
I think Gladys, you very beautifully cleared everyone's doubt and questions regarding to this topic. And so we are truly grateful to you for your time and effort today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to share on a topic that I'm very passionate about.
Thank you. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is a wrap to our two-day international conference on law and technology. My sincere thanks to the entire organizing team for this terrific event. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. I wish you all a good evening.